What's up everyone, welcome back to another Doki Doki Drawing video. Got something kind of cool to show you today. It's called the zi-keshi, or probably in Japanese it's pronounced as the zi-keshi. It is a mechanical eraser. Now this is nothing new, you've probably seen mechanical erasers before. You've probably even used one at school for, erasing things during your test or your schoolwork, or you may have used it as an artist thinking that you want an eraser that's easier to use because it's like a pen. You can get to hard to reach areas or small zones when you only want to erase a small area like this. But there's one little feature about this eraser that is apparently going to make it a little bit different to your typical mechanical eraser, and it's this feature here. If we have a closer look here on the zi-keshi, you can actually see that it's got the erasings after you've used the eraser. They magnetically attach to the cap of this mechanical eraser. So typically after you've been drawing with your pencil, either you're writing words or you're drawing some kind of face like this with super amazing hair and ears and a neck, you might think, even though this is an absolute masterpiece of anime art, you may want to erase it because it's absolutely terrible. And so you go ahead and you erase it with this typical eraser. This is just a standard eraser, and one of the most common that you'll find in Japan. It's rectangular shaped, and you just erase like so. But after you've erased your absolute magnificent piece of artwork, which can now never be retrieved, I'm so sorry about that, you have this to deal with, these rubbish bits of erasings. Is there a special name for this? I don't know if there's a special name for this. And typically speaking, you'll just take everything off your paper and you'll just brush it off to the side like this, and then you'll have to get the vacuum cleaner out at the end of the week or at the end of the day and get rid of all those erasings. But no more of this primitive erasings and brushings off. Let's go into the future with the zi-keshi, or the zi-keshi. I actually don't know how they want me to pronounce this. So just to be clear, this is not a sponsored video. Just walked into a Japanese stationery shop and picked this up thinking it looks kind of interesting. Let's go ahead and get it out of this wrapper. So we'll just open the plastic here and pull it out. It's quite exciting, and I think this is one of the nice things about having fancy stationery, is that if you don't particularly like practicing or you don't like doing schoolwork in general, I personally found that having cool little gizmos like this actually was a little bit of a motivating factor to try a little bit harder, because I had cool stuff in my pencil case. And also I think you just lose concentration while you're in class sometimes. It's nice to have something fun to play with and annoy your neighbors with something nice and loud that kind of bothers them. But as you can see, as I've been clicking on here, it's actually ejecting the eraser out bit by bit, and like a mechanical pencil, I imagine if I click it closed and push, I can slide it straight back into it. So let's give you a closer look at the zi-keshi. So this is the pen, the zi-keshi. It's got a blue top here, which is supposedly the magnetic portion, and you just click like so, and you can get the eraser to pop out. So we just put this on the ruler here and we give it one single push. You can see that it gives you about 1, 2, 3 millimeters. So a single push of this gives you about 3 millimeters of eraser. Let's test how well it erases. So actually, in fact, I think I probably want about 2 different pushes. In fact, it says on the instruction manual on the back of here, give it 2 knocks. So you'll get about 4 to 6 millimeters of eraser. And this is probably the right amount. You want to use it so that it does erase, but it doesn't bend and become floppy. Let's get some floppies in the chat. Let's get some floppies on the screen. Floppy. And as an homage, let's actually draw a floppy, shall we? Gen Z, they're probably like, what the heck is that? Share. Where? But alas, it is 2020. We don't need any of that floppy garbage anymore. So let's go ahead and erase it. Oh, it's erasing nice and cleanly. Now, I haven't used one of these for a little while, but it does kind of bother me that it does actually get a little bit floppy when you push on it. Just so you can see, when you erase with it, it does go a little bit floppy like that. To be honest, I think I still prefer the turgid roughness of this eraser because it doesn't flop around when you use it. But let's just go ahead and use this to see how well it works. Wow, it does erase quite quickly, and you get a lot of rubbish. Can you see we've got a lot more erasings than we did earlier using this standard eraser, and they also kind of flake around into many more small pieces than when we used this one. When we used this one before, it all seemed to erase and then bundle up into like a single bundle of erasing. But this one really does flake a lot and crumble. So this is the amount of erasings you get from just the word floppy. Let's try out the magnetic portion. This is quite exciting, actually. I don't know how exactly it works. I don't think you have to click it in or anything. I think it's just automatically magnetic already. Let's see how it goes. Oh, I'm going to zoom in for this. Ooh, wow! It's magic! What? That's weird. Hey, it does work though. This is going to take a while. As you can see, there's, even from a single word, like the word floppy, it's taking me a while to actually pick up all of the erasings. Wow, this is turning out to be a lot more bother than I was expecting. And after we've picked up all of the erasings, you can still see there's a number of crumbs that didn't get picked up. So, now that we've got most of the erasings on the tip of the pen cap here, as you can see, what do we do with them now? Well, it's time to throw them away, so I'll just bring out this tissue here and let's see if it works. Now, I think you just click the eraser like so. Oh, wait, oh! Hang on a minute. There's actually two parts to this. One moves in like so. The whole thing moves like this in order to get more of the eraser to come out. And then there's a second part, which is this clip part only. And I think the clip removes the magnet. So if we pull the clip like so, nothing's happening. Oh, you give it a shake. So if you flick the magnetic latch part like this, then eventually all of the erasings do fall off the tip of the pen, like so. And there are your erasings. And since it didn't clean it up quite perfectly, let's put our rubbish over here and let's clean up the rest of this mess. Some of the pieces are a little bit too small or they're really sticking to the paper. I'm just gonna brush it with my finger like this. Okay. All right, so first impressions of the zi-keshi is that this is, well, it's a nice mechanical eraser. As with many mechanical erasers, it is quite soft, and so just by using it, it does sort of bend a bit like this. You can fix that, obviously, by only knocking it out a little bit so that you have less of it to bend. Obviously, the less length there is, the less it's going to bend. But the thing about it is that even though it's quite nice for erasing very specific parts of the page, I feel like there's significantly more erasings that appear from literally I'm erasing a single word and I've got all of this erasing garbage coming off it. I can't really come to a conclusion on this. It doesn't clean up the erasings perfectly well, but it does get most of it off the page. And then after that, you've just got this extra step of having to do this, like there. I was about to complain that you have to like make this sound, otherwise it doesn't actually perfectly come off. But when there's a smaller amount of erasings like this, you can just pull it slowly and it does fall off the magnet. And you gotta shake a little bit to get the last bits off. Standard eraser, zi-keshi. And let's write the same number of letters on the left and the right side. Stay floppy. I'm such a master. Look at the way I wrote it perfectly the same on the left and the right side. Clearly, I'm the floppy master. So first up, the standard eraser. Let's try and erase this. Stay floppy. And let's make sure that all the erasings stay on the paper. So that's the amount of erasing we've got from the standard eraser here. And let's now use zi-keshi. Going to leave it out about this much. Let's go ahead and erase it. So I think you can see for yourself, from the standard eraser, this is the kind of rubbish you have to put up with. And from the zi-keshi mechanical eraser, this is the amount of rubbish you have to put up with. But wait, it's time for part 2. Let's clean up the standard eraser. And now, let's clean up the zi-keshi. All right, and that is our test complete. Standard eraser versus the zi-keshi. Now here are my concluding thoughts on this test. With the standard eraser, you end up with less shaving rubbish, but you do have to brush it away with your hand and or just pick up whatever's left, because it does tend to, with this Tombow mono plastic eraser, it does seem to leave all of the erasings in a single bundle, which is really nice. The downsides, of course, to this eraser are that it does end up less specific. So once you've used it a little bit, then erasing a very specific zone becomes more and more difficult, because as it becomes more blunt in shape, it's harder to get to very specific small areas. At which point you might have to take off the plastic and expose like a different part of the eraser, so you get to like the sharper cornered points here, so that you can erase only the very specific part that you're trying to erase, like this little bit of here of this R. Now by comparison, we have the zi-keshi, and the main benefit, of course, to the zi-keshi is that you can, one, hold it like a pen, two, get to very specific places all the time, because it's always a nice thin eraser that only erases very specific places. So I can only have this much out, and I can erase, you know, only this absolute middle part of this K here, or only the dot of this I, stuff like that. And of course, the main gimmick of the zi-keshi is that after you've done the erasing, you can pick it up with the magnet at the end here. Now, there are some major benefits to this, of course, because now you don't need to brush the erasings off. However, let's get to the, I don't want to say the downsides, but let's get to the reality of the zi-keshi. With the zi-keshi, I would say that for the same amount of pressure that I was pushing, I didn't get as much of the actual word erased, so you would have to actually push a little bit harder with this eraser to get it erased compared to this Tombow standard white eraser. Then secondly, there's the fact that it doesn't really pick up all of the shavings. It does pick up most of the shavings, but then at the end of it, you end up kind of doing a brush off like this anyway, so you haven't really done away with the brushing away of erasings, because you still end up having to do it. But there is the plus side that now you have most of the erasings here, and so I can put them in a nice clean area like so, without having to get them all over my carpet and the floor. So all in all, I would have to say that this is quite a fun little thing to have in your pencil case. Of course, there's the main benefit of the standard eraser, which is that when someone asks you, hey, can I borrow your eraser? You just go, sure, here you go, and you toss it to them, knowing that 99.5% of the time, you're never going to see this eraser again, because people don't return stuff. And that's fine, because it doesn't cost you very much money. But when it comes to the zi-keshi, if you don't get this back, you're going to be like, oh man, that dude always borrows my stuff and they never return anything. I'm just kidding. Honestly, I don't think the whole borrowing and returning thing is going to be an issue. So there you have it. That was the standard eraser versus the zi-keshi mechanical eraser with magnetic top. I think it looks kind of cool. And again, I have said this before, but it's not necessary, but sometimes it's nice to have some kind of gizmo in your pencil case, so that when you're taking a test, or you're just studying in school for a number of hours a day, or you're writing your essays, you want to just have a few gimmicks that you can play around with, flick the magnetic portion, or extend this, put it back in, extend it again, put it back in. And honestly, I'm actually not joking. I think that does actually help a large number of people study harder, because to focus on anything for longer than 30 minutes or 45 minutes is kind of difficult for any person to do. So to have little gizmos like this that you can kind of take your mind off things, but not wander so far that you start thinking about video games and going online later. It's nice to have a little fidgety thing that you can muck about with in your pencil case. But now we want to hear what you think. Do you prefer a standard eraser like this, or do you think you'd like to have a mechanical eraser that you can flick out to exactly the right length that you want, and then pick up all the shavings using the magnetic eraser and then flick them off like so? Tell us in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to Doki Doki Drawing. And last but not least, remember, stay floppy.